2, 1. Hi and welcome to the 20th episode of the Jack and Ian Show. It's hard to believe that we reached 20. It feels like we basically just started. So we got a great episode in store for y'all, though. A lot of big moves have been made in the NFL this offseason, as long with baseball, both in their free agency period. A lot of transactions occurring. But then March Madness on top of all of that in terms of you're talking about probably, it is, not even probably, it is the biggest basketball tournament in the world. So that is obviously a big, big deal that we will talk about, with a lot of controversy having taken place. But as always, whenever there's NFL news, we like to kick it off with that. So we might as well stay true to form here. Now, a lot of big moves have happened since last Tuesday, not the least of which was the massive celebrity breakup of Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Really earth-shattering, probably the biggest breakup since Kim and Kanye, if we're really thinking about it. It was a big, big deal. Not enough money left over, although the Packers said they'd offered him. Obviously going to your team here, so
yes.
I'm sure you're greatly appreciative of Davante Adams wanting out. How do you feel about how that whole situation played out from a Raiders standpoint, obviously with you being a Raiders fan, but also looking on the other side from the Packers' perspective, how big of a deal is it for them to lose a player of this caliber?
Yeah, so I'll just start from my take just as a Raiders fan. First off, obviously I'm stoked. When I heard that Davante Adams decided and told the Packers organization that he wouldn't be playing under his franchise tag, I was just thinking, Raiders. This is your chance to make a move and to bolster your offense, just like how everybody else in the AFC West has been doing with either re-signing free agents or signing new players. And we got him. I am absolutely stoked that we got Davante Adams. Definitely the best, in my opinion, wide receiver in the NFL. And I feel like he's exactly what we needed. We needed a big guy. We needed somebody that Derek Carr could kind of throw up to and that would get up there and come down with the grab. I felt like, we had a couple guys, obviously Renfro's that slot receiver. You have Waller, who needs some of that pressure taken off of him, and this will definitely help. So I think this is a great move for the Raiders, and obviously they've made many more acquisitions, and they could be making some more acquisitions in the coming days, but Davante Adams is huge for us. He's going to get back with Derek Carr, his old buddy from Fresno State. So I hope those link-ups are still there because I cannot wait for this NFL season to start. And yeah, it's just a crazy trade. And I guess from that Packers point of view, right, you got to be wondering, like, how much more money would it have taken, right, to sign him?
I don't think he would have come back regardless.
Yeah, but I mean, just the fact that you re-signed Rodgers or extended Rodgers, right, for that much, and then you lose Adams. Now Rodgers has pretty much nobody to throw to. I mean, it's kind of like Tom Brady and that Buccaneers receiving corps come the end of this last season during the playoffs. I mean, you have a great quarterback, but if you don't have anyone to really throw to, it's going to be kind of tough to get anything done. So I think, obviously it hurt the Packers. I think they're still going to be all right because Rodgers is a fantastic quarterback. I think he'll learn how to deal with that type of pressure of not having some of the top targets, but it's definitely a big loss. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a big loss. I mean, thinking about it again, obviously Kanye's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Then that makes Davante Adams Kim Kardashian, and that makes Derek Carr Pete Davidson.
Yes.
If we're looking at this, and so just a thought to ponder, thinking about it like that. Now, it obviously hurts the Packers. It's one of the best. It is the best probably wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
It is a massive loss. Now they kind of broke $1 into two 50-cent pieces with this. I mean, they got like Julio, guys like that, right? I mean, they've made some other moves that have been nice, but by no means is it going to replace fully what they're now going to be missing with Davante Adams. So it certainly was a sad day if you're a Packer fan. I wouldn't say you should be too surprised that he was wanting to get out of a situation like that and away from the cold. Now the question is, how long will Davante Adams last in Las Vegas?
Exactly.
Before he apparently will, like all Raiders players, commit some crime and wind up in prison.
Yeah.
So that is the trend that we've seen with the Vegas Raiders. We'll see if that continues with Davante Adams. Probably not. Hopefully not.
Yeah. He luckily he doesn't seem to be one of those guys. He seems pretty, calm-headed, very team-oriented.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
So yeah.
He'll be fine.
He should be good.
Speaking of guys that are going to get in trouble in their new cities, Matt Ryan was traded to Indianapolis. We know that means trouble for Indy. Watch out, Indianapolis.
Yes.
Matt Ryan is coming. It's a deal that they're going to have their basically fifth quarterback in 5 years or something ridiculous.
So, yeah. It's pretty bad for the Colts right now. Yeah.
Might be starting quarterback because it was 1 year Andrew Luck didn't start the season, but he was on the roster. So
yep.
The point is there's been a lot of quarterback turnover. I would imagine this will be fairly similar to the Phillip Rivers year.
Yep.
If I had to guess, I feel like both are decently similar quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Both are very good.
Yeah. I think both are great quarterbacks. Yeah.
Yeah, they just play very similar games. It's the arms race in the AFC right now, and the Colts are getting in on the action weirdly. I feel like this would be a time for them to punt, although I guess you have, like, Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Guys like that you don't want to waste their primes, but I don't know. It just feels a little bit goofy to go after a guy like Matt Ryan, which, he makes your team better, but, like...
For how long, though?
Yeah, right? And how much are you going to be able to win in the AFC with him as your quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a solid all-around team besides that, and you'll be fine. But the Titans are still going to win the division. And then besides that, the AFC is stacked.
Yeah.
So it does bode well that they're in the weakest division of them all.
Yeah.
With Houston, Jacksonville, all those teams.
Yep.
But you're still in the AFC, so that it seemed a little questionable to me. What did you think about the move?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's very similar to that Phillip Rivers move. I mean, I think Matt Ryan fits the Colts offense. Kind of that pocket quarterback. Ever since Andrew Luck's been there, I mean, they've had that kind of pocket quarterback type of offense with then Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz. Obviously, Carson Wentz was a little more mobile, but now Matt Ryan, I mean. When I saw this trade go through, I was like, okay. I mean, Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. I think he's a solid quarterback. But if you're the Colts and you're thinking about long-term plans, right? You have Jonathan Taylor, who's coming off of 1,300 or 1,400 rushing yards.
Right.
And this is your chance to either say, we're going to do something right now and build around him and build around young guys like Michael Pittman at wide receiver, or this is when, just like you said, you punt it and you're just like, look, we're gonna wipe this team clear, and start a rebuild process. And right now I feel like the Colts are kind of in limbo, right? You have Jonathan Taylor, and now you bring in Matt Ryan, who's an experienced quarterback, and probably for most Colts fans and for the Colts in general, they're hoping, okay, maybe Matt Ryan can get us back to the playoffs, maybe to a wild card, something like that. But this is by no means a long-term fix. I mean, Matt Ryan, I'm sure, has a couple more years left in him, but are those the type of quality years that you're going to want from your quarterback in this situation with guys like Pittman who are going to, who are coming up in the ranks, guys like Jonathan Taylor who are coming up in the ranks in the NFL as well. So it's definitely an interesting move. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I'm not sure how long his contract was, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to sign him to maybe like a 2 or 3 year or something, and then just keep him there and maybe get a quarterback or something next season and use him as someone that can teach. But I don't know. It's a strange move.
But they've done that.
That's the thing. Yeah.
I don't know. They're kind of in a weird limbo state, and it'll be interesting to see how they get out of it.
Yeah.
Another interesting move that happened was Robert Woods being traded for virtually nothing to the Tennessee Titans. It was a 6th rounder in return. That bolsters up that wide receiver core. Obviously, them moving off of Julio Jones, but still having guys like A.J. Brown and a couple other weapons. Obviously, Derrick Henry as well. What do you think about this? Obviously, he's coming off a torn ACL, but he's still a very talented wide receiver when healthy.
Yeah, no, I think Robert Woods is a great signing for the Titans. Obviously, we don't know how much he's going to play this year because of that torn ACL. Obviously, if he does even come back, it's going to be towards the back end of the season. But no, I think, to me, Robert Woods is one of the most consistent wide receivers in the league. Mm-hmm. He's consistently kind of at this line where at least fantasy-wise, he does great for me. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
But he's always been a solid wide receiver. He's never been that primary target, but he's always been that second option there. And he kind of takes he kind of the primary receivers in certain teams take off pressure from Robert Woods for him to get open. And when he gets open, he's flying down the field or he's making a crossing route across the field. And this guy always seems to get open. He's fast. He's pretty elusive. And so I do think it's a great pickup for the Titans, especially considering that they've got a team around them, around him already. It's not like you're going to have to build. He's a great addition. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's solid. I mean, there's not too much to really say here, though, with the Titans. Julio Jones won a massive contribution to that team, so that's not a big loss. And then this probably won't be too much of a factor either. They'll be good next year, to say the least. Yep. Now, another team in this AFC arms race is the Bills. They went defensive, though, with it, and they went and got 47-year-old Von Miller and signed him to a lifetime contract. He will die playing for the Bills. So Von Miller is a guy that was contemplating retirement. He is, I believe, 32 years old. Maybe 31.
Yeah, 32.
32. He's 32 years old. He was contemplating retirement, which is, at 32 is the time that a lot of NFL players kind of, they retire. That's the end. They want to retire in their prime. He just won a Super Bowl. It would make sense for him to quit. But he signed a 6-year contract with the Buffalo Bills. So to go from possibly retiring or maybe signing a 1-year deal and returning to Denver for a year or whatever, kind of a farewell tour type of thing, to signing a 6-year deal worth a lot of money.
Yeah, $120 million or something.
Yeah, in Buffalo, I mean, it makes sense. They're going to be extraordinarily competitive, it's for sure, over the next 6 years with Josh Allen, but it just was like, holy smokes, that was a lot bigger, a lot longer of a contract than makes sense for a 32-year-old. I mean, you're talking about him playing linebacker at 38, making a lot of money, taking up a lot of salary cap space.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't make a ton of sense to me, at least for the contract. It made sense in terms of the player and the fit, but the contract just was like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That was insane. What do you think about that fit and how he might fit in there in Buffalo, along with what in the world was that deal that he signed?
Oh, yeah. I mean, no doubt. I definitely think Von Miller will fit into that Buffalo defense. It's just such a strange contract for someone at his age. I mean, he just came off of an ACL 3 seasons ago. I mean, again, he's 32. And obviously, I don't know how much of this contract is guaranteed, but the fact that if he does play the full 6 years, that he's going to get $120 million, that's ridiculous for someone that's 32. But, I mean, good for him. It's just such a very strange contract for someone like him. And, I mean, honestly, when I saw this get posted onto NFL's Instagram, I thought it was a joke. I genuinely thought it was the NFL memes page on Instagram. And then they posted another picture of Von Miller. And I'm just like, is someone hacking this account? Because this, to me, just flat out didn't make sense. And, I mean, I think if you ask anybody, they'll say the same thing. It's just a very strange signing for the Bills. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say.
It definitely was. One that was not strange, kind of going to another team, was Allen Robinson to the Rams.
Yeah.
That was a big signing for them, bolstering up that offense. Yet again, you don't know what the health of Odell Beckham Jr. will look like going into next year quite yet, it feels like. Obviously, you've already got very talented weapons on this roster, but now you're just adding one more. What do you think this does for the Rams' Super Bowl chances moving into next season?
I would say it keeps it level. I honestly think, bringing in Allen Robinson, it's very similar to having a Robert Woods, I feel like.
Yeah.
Very similar. And obviously, depending on the status of Odell Beckham Jr. and where he's going to be come the start of the season, obviously he's not going to be ready at the start of the season, but, I mean, I think this kind of just steadies their chances. The only thing is that Allen Robinson, I just feel like he's very up and down sometimes. Just you don't know what to expect from him sometimes. I mean, the before last season, in 2019 and 2020, he broke 1,100 yards, which is phenomenal. But then last year in Chicago, obviously he didn't play as many games, but he only had 410 yards. And so it was a really strange drop-off. To be honest, I'm not sure what to attribute that to, maybe other than the fact that just he was playing in Chicago, and Chicago is just not a very good team. But I mean, in terms of coming to the Rams, I think it's a very similar move to just replacing Robert Woods. But yeah, how about you? What do you think about that move?
I don't know. It feels pretty lateral. It feels like it's replacing Robert Woods.
Yeah.
They're obviously going to be a very, very good offense next year. High-powered. They'll be able to move the ball extraordinarily well. Von Miller, they'll miss, as we talked about, defensively. But, I mean, you still got some absolute beast on that defense. I mean, they'll be fine. I wouldn't be worried about it if I were them. I think they're primed to at least make the playoffs again for next year, and that's about all you can ask.
Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, again, just a very lateral move, just like Jack said. It's very much a just one-for-one replacement for Robert Woods. But now moving on to another trade where I heard some things saying the Browns weren't interested in him at one point, then they were again, then they said that they're never going to sign him. And then all of a sudden, Deshaun Watson does decide to sign with the Cleveland Browns. Jack, what do you think about that?
That was a massive move by Cleveland. They now have 3 quarterbacks on their team, so I don't know why they didn't try and trade Baker first.
Yeah.
That didn't make much sense to me. It would make a lot more sense to, get rid of the quarterback because they're like, oh, well, then they're not going to have a quarterback. They need some stuff in return.
Yep.
But, I mean, if you have Deshaun Watson, you're not putting yourself in a good place of leverage there in terms of having to give a guy like that up. I'm not sure what teams really would want him. Most of the teams that don't have a quarterback right now are trying to punt on the next season or draft a quarterback in this draft. And so it feels like they're kind of going to be stuck now because they didn't move Baker Mayfield before they got Deshaun Watson. That seemed very stupid.
Yeah.
Now, the second thing is the fit is fine. He's a great quarterback, whatever. But it's still the Browns, and they're still probably going to suck. And you got to remember, even some of those Deshaun Watson teams, no matter how awesome he was, some of those Houston teams were bad.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of Browns fans, I think, are looking at this kind of like a guarantee. But in the AFC, now in a division with the Colts and the Titans, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough in the AFC in general. They're not going to make the playoffs, I don't think, even with Deshaun Watson on that football team. Making this move look even a little bit more stupid would have made a lot more sense for a team like the Falcons to have made a move for this. I'm not sure why Cleveland went all in. I understand the Baker Mayfield situation. But at the same time, it would have made more sense to resolve the Baker situation and then do this.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like they jumped the gun too fast. Maybe Atlanta was closing on a deal. I don't know. But from what I can tell, it'll make them a better team, far more formidable, but they won't make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Especially considering that, again, obviously Odell Beckham is no longer there. Jarvis Landry was given the green light to go searching for other teams. So, again, you can have the best quarterback in the world, one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, but if you don't have an offensive line and if you don't have targets for him to throw to, you can't really do anything with that. So, again, it's a very interesting trade for the Browns. Just like Jack said, they're kind of, I mean, at least as fans looking in, it seems like this isn't the right move at this time. Obviously, no matter what team Watson goes to, that'll be a huge boost in terms of their quarterback, but their overall team and organization is in no place to begin building around Deshaun Watson or someone like him. So it's just a very strange move. But that's going to wrap it up for our NFL segment today. Again, a lot of stuff happening in NFL's free agency period this offseason. But now we've got some news in terms of March Madness and some basketball. So, Jack, I'll turn that over to you.
Okay. I'm trying to think about how I want to attack this. Listen. I filled out a bracket. I filled out a couple different brackets. I filled out brackets for different things. I filled one out for many different groups. You know, it's fun filling out a bracket for a day. And then what happens is the games actually start playing. And you only grow more and more angry. And that eventually led to... I've had to basically delete the tournament app that ESPN has for my own well-being. I have now re-downloaded it to look at how I'm doing. I'm actually surprised. I'm doing pretty good. In a group of about 30, I'm like 5th right now.
Really?
And my bracket sucks. It is bad. And so the fact that I'm 5th out of like 30 people, 30 like guys that would know basketball well, like makes me feel pretty good. So I quit caring about my bracket probably after the round of 64 when the stupid Midwest division decided to just be stupid. And who all lost in that was dumb. Kansas made sense, fine. Creighton, I picked them too. Iowa losing to Richmond is just ridiculous. Poor Dick Vitale too, picking Iowa and Kentucky to play in the championship game. I mean, that's bad luck, man. South Dakota State, you were the darling child, you were the chosen one, and you choked. Congratulations, you suck. LSU against Iowa State. Listen, LSU lost their coach. I picked them anyway because they're a better team. Trust me, I watched both teams play. LSU's better. But LSU just having their coach fired before the tournament probably did not help. Wisconsin, congratulations. You didn't choke to Colgate. But did you? Yeah, you did to Iowa State. So, yeah, you don't get any love. Miami's been awesome. Beating USC and then beating Auburn. My goodness. I mean...
Yeah.
They didn't show up against Texas A&M, and then they didn't show up against Miami. Two teams they should have just absolutely pummeled. It's kind of ridiculous. It just lack of engagement all around. It was just stupid, honestly.
I definitely felt bad for you when I saw that Miami beat Auburn because first of all, I did pick Auburn, and I know that you're an Auburn fan too. So
yes,
that was probably pretty tough.
I care deeply for Auburn, and they lost by 18 to a 10 seed. So that was how that went. And then on top of that, stupid Providence. Can we talk about how dumb this team is? First, they beat the darling child, South Dakota State. The Jackrabbits. I've already said my piece on them. They're not worth mentioning otherwise. Then they beat the Richmond Spiders. That's fine. I just hope they know that they don't deserve to be in the Sweet 16. They're a stupid team. Then on the South Division, TCU's division, we'll talk about that game, I guess, here in a minute. But besides that, it's gone pretty much what I expected, honestly, looking at this. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm correct here. I love Houston in this division. Yeah. I love Houston. They're a very well-coached team. They drag games down in the mud. They play great defense. They're a top 20 offense, top 20 defense team. They're gritty, and I love them. I think they're going to I have them picked to go to my Final Four. They were in the Final Four last year. I think they'll be there again still. They play Arizona next, which, speaking of Arizona, they just eked out a win against TCU, a game that I'm sure both of us were watching very intently on Sunday night. It was a late game, ended about midnight here. Man, okay. This was a crazy game. Truly. It was close the entire time. Right when I thought Arizona was going to pull ahead, when they were up about 9 with about 8 minutes left, I was like, okay, I was ready to wave the white flag. I was like, they're just going to, they made their run. Yeah. They're going to coast now, keep it around 10 or so, and then that's going to be the game. Like, it's kind of just going to get drug out now. But TCU made a run and actually took the lead and gave us what is something that is very dangerous to have in March, which is hope. It's dangerous, and we felt the ramifications of having it shortly after. Talk about a game, though, from Arizona. I mean, both teams played their guts out, first off. Like, TCU fan, first off, extremely proud of how that team played. But on the other hand, like, Arizona, Benedict Mathurin, which it's not even worth me making a joke about his name. I'm going to be honest. Benedict Mathurin. How his parents allowed that to... How someone allowed that to be signed on a birth certificate in this day and age is criminal. Anyway, he wanted it the most out of any player on the floor.
And Christian Coloco were insane that game.
Well, Christian Coloco was great the first half. And then TCU was kind of able to find answers. Eddie was kind of able to battle back against him in that second half. But Benedict Mathurin nailing that deep three to tie it, and then obviously him going insane in overtime.
Yeah.
I mean, from an objective standpoint, he was the best player in that game. It was not even close. He dominated every time he really got in that zone. I mean, you're talking about a dude who played intensely hard. And I know it's not popular from a TCU perspective to talk about Arizona in such a manner.
Yeah.
But, I mean, props to that guy. I mean, he was the reason they won that game. We had nobody that could really be an answer for him, and we got a bunch of guards that can really play great perimeter defense. I mean, he was insane, particularly at the end of the game in an overtime. When it mattered most, he stepped up to the plate. So shout out to him. Shout out to the rest of TCU's squad for making that extraordinarily competitive and putting them in the national spotlight. Ian, how did you feel about that game? I know there was a lot of heartache on Monday morning. How are you feeling?
No, it was a great game. It was hard to swallow that loss in the end because obviously there were maybe one or two controversial calls towards the end of regulation with Mike Miles.
Yeah, we can talk about that too.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
I forgot about that.
No.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a second. But I mean, I couldn't be prouder of that of this TCU team. I mean, they fought till the end, and it just shows why Arizona's number one, because they can play down, or they can play whoever and not be playing their best game, or be playing their best game and somehow figure out a way to pull it out, and they did. Again, Benedict Mathurin was ridiculous. Christian Coloco in that
His
first half.
His name's also ridiculous.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, Christian Coloco had a great game. But, there was one turning point for me in that game, and that was when Kerr Kriisa had 3 open three-pointers, missed all of them, but we didn't rebound. And I think those were our two problems against Arizona this game, was allowing second chance points. That always kills you. And then free throws. Free throws were a constant throughout the season, but allowing second chance points really, really, really killed us. Imagine had TCU gotten one of those rebounds, just one.
Yeah.
And we could have had the game in our hands, but we didn't. And I mean, I'm not trying to badmouth TCU or anything, but that was the game right there, in my opinion.
It was. I mean, speaking about how it is, I think we ran out of gas. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
TCU's a very good rebounding team, and it became pretty obvious to me in overtime that they had not much left in the tank.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about playing. I mean, I guess the first game they didn't have to be too high energy, but I'm sure they were up, adrenaline pumping for that first one. And then, I mean, they played their hearts out in regulation, and I think they gave it all they had, and they couldn't afford 5 more minutes.
Yep.
And just speaking honestly, from what I saw, that's what it looked. It looked like a team that wanted it bad, but they just could not. They could not muster the energy necessary to match Arizona's. And man, Arizona was able to reach deep into something, particularly Mathurin, and just find something that got them the win. And that's what winning teams have. Yep. Seriously, that's what winning teams have.
Yeah.
Now, should they have won is a bigger question.
Yeah.
Going back to the end of regulation, a controversial call. It's not very controversial. Most people agree. It was a terrible call. For there to be no call at the end of the game on Mike Miles with 2.2 seconds left. It was a fairly obvious blocking call that would have sent TCU to the line because we were in the double bonus. I mean, to swallow the whistle there would have been a foul. Honestly, if he one fouled, it was a backcourt violation.
Yep.
Honestly. There should have been a whistle blown one way or another. It was a blocking foul first. But then even if you don't want to call it a blocking foul, it is undeniable as a backcourt violation.
Yeah.
I would have loved it not to be, but it would have been. And so that's when it became obvious. The refs just swallowed their whistle at the end, not wanting to be the guy to make a call, which oftentimes will put you in the spotlight more than if you do make a call.
Exactly.
It kind of goes both ways there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for them, and so they were They were under the spotlight there for a good long while.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people, not even necessarily within the TCU media, but within the national media, were fairly outraged about the ending of regulation to that game. Ian, did you think it was a blocking call in the moment? I certainly did.
Yeah. So I'd say in the moment I was for certain it was a blocking call. Totally 100%. And even now when I watch the replay back, I still believe it's a foul. But every time I click replay on that highlight, I see the flop more evident each time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't think Mike Miles is in the wrong to do it. I think he might have slightly overdone it to the point where that's where the refs decided not to. Because I think he sold it a little too hard.
Well, you can just because he sold it doesn't mean it wasn't a foul.
No, exactly.
I mean, this was brought up. I was listening to a podcast the other day, college basketball, and just talking about the weekend, and they brought this game up. And one guy was like, "Yeah, he flopped," and the other guys that were on there were like, "Well, yeah, he did, but he also got fouled.
Yeah.
That's why it happened in the first place." So
I get that too, and I mean it's an unfortunate decision, but definitely I still believe it's a foul, but can't really do much other than just tip your caps to Arizona. But also, one thing that's kind of frustrated me ever since the game happened is the amount of talk TCU's been getting. People aren't giving TCU enough credit, I feel.
Oh, yes, they are.
Are they?
Yes.
Okay.
Bro, there was an article
Maybe
on
that's just
Barstool about TCU today.
Okay.
About TCU basketball. Dude, they are... I was about to bring up the opposite about how this game is massive for them because of the national attention it's gotten. Comparatively to what it had been in the past. I mean, it's going to get as much national attention as a round of 32 game is. You know what I mean? Like, this wasn't the Final Four game. You know? It was also the late game, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Eastern time, it ended at 1 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm not a fan of either of those teams, which if you're the East Coast, you're not, more than likely, then you're not watching that.
Yeah.
So, considering the circumstances, I think it got plenty of press.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that pays off.
Yep.
You know, Monday's a big day for TCU basketball. Talking about Anthony Black announcing where he is heading, a 5-star recruit with TCU in his top 5, along with going to the NBA G League, which has become less popular since its conception, but along with that, Gonzaga, Arkansas, and I believe the other team was Oklahoma State. And so he'll make a decision accordingly. He is a 6'7" point guard, extraordinarily skilled, would help this team immediately going into next year. And him and Micah Peavy are apparently really close too, which bodes well for TCU, along with the national attention they are now getting. Now that said, it'll be interesting with that because TCU is out of scholarships. We're returning basically every player that it's on one. And the one that Harry Young is losing is going to go to PJ Haggerty, who's a recruit that is already signed on. He's basically like a raw Mike Miles. Like, PJ Haggerty will be good one day, but he'll probably be like a backup point guard next year. He'll get minutes, but he won't be a stud or anything like Anthony Black would be. So it might be an offseason of great roster reshuffling, particularly if we get Anthony Black. That would mean that we're going to probably cut a guy on the roster that's a scholarship player, or ask one to not be a scholarship player, at which point they would transfer. So it's going to be interesting to me to see how this all plays out in terms of who will be on the roster next year. I would imagine it'll be fairly similar. I'm not sold on the idea that we will get Anthony Black. I mean, we're competing against some big schools. But it's fun to be in that conversation.
Oh, of course.
You know, that's a big deal. TCU rarely is with basketball, so it is a big deal nonetheless. I hope we get them. It'd be a massive, massive deal if we did.
No, definitely.
Anyway, moving on with the rest of March Madness.
Yeah.
Plenty happened. Going to the East, Did I skip over one? Oh, I did. We talked about Houston earlier, and we also talked about the refs in the TCU game. Do you see that tech that was called on hanging on the rim by that Illinois player?
Yeah.
That was egregious.
Yep.
That was horrible. Like, and again, like, that was so bad. Seriously. He hung on the rim for maybe 2-3 seconds. They called the tech. It was stopping his momentum. That dude was flying down the court.
Yeah.
He would have got. I sincerely believe he would have gotten hurt had he not hung on the rim.
Yeah.
And the refs teed him up. Anyway, another game. I bring this up because another game that had a lot of referee controversy after was Baylor, North Carolina. This one less so because North Carolina actually won, and most of the missed calls or poor calls were against North Carolina, particularly because they had a lot of players that either got ejected, fouled out, some very vital players to their team, and yet they still got a win against Baylor, Baylor probably being the weakest one seed, however. Other games, UCLA looks amazing right now. Their team that made the Final Four last year, I was a big St. Mary's guy.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
I was higher on St. Mary's. I thought they had what it took, but apparently not. One game that was hilarious. Let me see. I want to get the number exactly right here.
Yeah.
Purdue, Texas. Purdue won by 10. This got to the point where I was like actually laughing. It became kind of a joke because the amount of free throws that were taken in this game by both teams is pretty comical. Particularly when you look at the disparity. Let me see.
Oh my gosh.
Pulled up. Yeah, Purdue shot 46, and I believe Texas shot 12. So, and Purdue won by 10.
Oh my gosh.
I'm high on Purdue. But even I was pulling for Purdue. I was watching with a guy that's a Texas fan. He was obviously pissed, but I was like, this is honestly, this is ridiculous. Like, yes, some of these are fouls, but like 46-12 is that just the odds of that being accurate is very slim.
Yeah.
That one team would foul that much more than another. So that was ridiculous. Jaden Ivey hitting a massive three for Purdue there. Big fan of his. And who would we be if we did not mention the Peacocks of St. Peter's making an absolutely massive run, kind of like Oral Roberts did last year. Right now on the way to the Sweet 16 as a 15 seed, having beaten Kentucky in a thriller, and Murray State as well, a Murray State team that I believed in, and did not show up and lost to a 15 seed. So congratulations, you got an easy one and you blew it. Memphis Gonzaga was another one of those 1 versus 8 seeds or 9 seeds.
Yep.
That was extraordinarily good. Memphis played very well. It's it for Jalen Duren at Memphis, but they got a really good roster. If I'm Penny, you want to bring as many back as possible. Plus, from what I'm hearing, they're going to work the transfer portal a lot, so that'll be interesting to see what they can pull off there. Sure. Gonzaga continues to look extraordinarily impressive. Memphis is not right now as good as a 9. Like they play better than a 9 seed.
Yeah,
is a good way to put it. They play more like a 3 or a 4 seed. So the score can be deceiving when you look at 1 versus 9. But Memphis players are saying we look at this like 1v1 seed. Memphis ended the season on a 14-2 run, record wise. So they were really clicking. Arkansas beating New Mexico State in a game that was tight. I have no complaints with these. I picked every single one of these. Duke beat Michigan State. Coach K still in it, and Texas Tech beating Notre Dame. I don't believe in them at all, Notre Dame at all. So it makes sense. Moving forward, the tournament will be interesting. I got a lot of teams left. Let's see how I'm doing on my Final Four. I think I'm doing all right. I only got one team out of my Final Four. I'm 3 for 4 so far. I got Gonzaga, Purdue, and Houston still remaining, so I'm going to ride with them. Because I feel pretty good about those. Yeah, it'll be an interesting Sweet 16 and Elite 8 this weekend as well, which we will talk about next episode whenever those games might take place. So that is all I have for basketball this week. Do you have anything else to add? Nothing whatsoever.
That's it.
That said, let's move into some baseball.
Yeah.
It's back, and it's better than ever. Not really. It's the same baseball, but it's still back, so it's fun. It's off season right now. Training camp, really. Some transactions took place. Ian, can you tell me about those?
Yeah, so again, spring training is going on right now. Baseball is back since signing that CBA about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And there's two specific transactions that I want to talk about this week that are really interesting transactions, not just for the players, but for these teams as well. And starting off with the Minnesota Twins. They're a team that was really active and may continue to stay active during this off-season and kind of spring training period as we lead up to the actual start of the season. But remember, early on, the Twins, they acquired Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela from the Yankees in return for... They acquired those two guys in exchange for Josh Donaldson, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and one more other player. So that was an interesting move, to say the least. And now, as of either yesterday, Monday, or early this morning today, they did sign a 3-year deal. They signed Carlos Correa to a 3-year deal, which is a really interesting move because I feel like the Minnesota Twins have very quietly become contenders for the American League Central. Again, the AL Central has the White Sox, the Tigers, the Royals, the Cleveland Guardians, and lastly the Minnesota Twins. But it's not a crazy division. Obviously, the White Sox are gonna most likely win that. I don't see how they couldn't. But then I think the Twins have really made themselves contenders for at least that expanded postseason that they're going to implement this year with the now 3 wild card teams getting in. And so I think that the Twins have made themselves contenders with this Carlos Correa trade or signing, if you will. And I mean, Carlos Correa is a great player. He's coming off of a all-star season last year. He had 26 home runs, 92 RBIs. His batting average was 279, and his on-base plus slugging was at 850. So, I mean, again, Carlos Correa is a great player. Defensively, he's amazing. Offensively, he is great. So I think this was a great move for the Minnesota Twins, a team that has been kind of up and down ever since getting rid of Josh Donaldson and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to the Yankees. I mean, I can't say that the Twins are going to be some great team this season or in the next few seasons to come, but it's been an interesting offseason to say the least. And then the second team that I want to get to are the Rockies. The Rockies are in a very interesting position right now. So since last episode, they've made 2 pretty big changes to their team. Trevor Story, who's been the Rockies shortstop, has gotten a lot of interest from many teams, and Trevor Story finally left he finally left the Colorado Rockies for the Boston Red Sox on a 6-year deal with an opt-out after 4 years, which is interesting. And so when the Rockies made this move, letting Trevor Story go to the Red Sox, it kind of cued that notion of, hey, we're in a rebuilding stage now. We're kind of getting rid of everybody, kind of having a clean sweep, a clean house of the clubhouse, and we're just going to have to start new this season. But then they proceed by signing Chris Bryant, who's a free agent who was with the Cubs for a part of last season, but then took his talents to San Francisco. They signed him to a 7-year deal. And so as a neutral fan of the Rockies, someone that doesn't pay attention to the Rockies because I'm an A's fan, I'm kind of sitting here and thinking, are the Rockies rebuilding? Are they trying to build around Chris Bryant? If you were trying to build around Chris Bryant, why wouldn't you just have kept Trevor Story and built around him because he's already been with the Rockies for some time? It's a very interesting transaction by the Colorado Rockies here because, just how Jack and I were talking about this earlier in the podcast about the Indianapolis Colts. The Rockies are in a very similar situation. You don't know if they're trying to rebuild or if they're trying to actually make a run for something. Obviously, they're not going to make a run for anything, but there's no point in signing Chris Bryant if you're going to let Trevor Story leave. So, yeah, I mean, really, these were the two transactions that I found, I wouldn't say most puzzling, but just the most interesting. Obviously, there were many more other transactions, but nothing too big. A couple guys moved teams. Kenley Jansen went to the Atlanta Braves for I think a 1-year deal, which I think that's a great pickup for the Braves, who are just going to bolster their bullpen and their closing pitchers even more. And then Jock Peterson went from the Dodgers, and he went up to Northern California to join the Dodgers' rivals, the San Francisco Giants, on a 1-year deal. So that should be pretty interesting. The San Francisco Giants have a bunch of left-handed hitters, so it'll be interesting to see how many righties that they can actually kind of work into that lineup, because it's a bunch of left-handed hitters in that Giants lineup. But that's pretty much it for baseball. Just a small update there, some of my thoughts on some interesting transactions going on, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think that's all we got for this episode.
All right, sweet. Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Jack and Ian Show. Again, this is our 20th episode. Thank you again for coming to watch us tonight. If you want to see more content, make sure to follow us on Instagram at the Jack and Ian Show, and make sure to subscribe down below. Click that subscribe button, and if you want to get notifications, hit the bell so you're notified when we come out with new videos. But until next time, that's it. We'll see you guys later.
Thank y'all.